Here we continue with our iOS 9 Lucky Lotto Picker app. As you can see right now, what we did in the first video is we laid out our user interface component. So you've got 6 buttons that will eventually hold our 6 lucky numbers. We have a couple labels, and we got a segmented control where the user can pick the maximum value of each lucky number, and then there's a pick button. So right now, obviously, our user interface does nothing. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to connect our view objects with our controller. So remember, we're using the model view controller design pattern. So we're separating all of our objects in our application into either view objects, model objects, or controller. We haven't done any model objects yet. We'll do that in probably the next video. In the last video, we created the view objects, and so the Xcode went ahead and created a template for our single controller. Since this is a single view app, we're just going to have one controller. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we can get the view objects to talk with the controller using a set of connections. We'll have connections for action, so every time a button is pressed or the segmented controller value changed, it'll inform the controller. And then we'll also have a set of outlets so the controller can talk to the view. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So the easiest way to do this, if you have your storyboard selected, easiest way to do this is with the storyboard selected. If you open the upper right, you'll see a button with 2 rings. That puts us into what's called the assistant editor mode. And typically what you'll get when you do this is your editor in the middle will be split into 2 screens. You'll have on the left, you'll have interface builder, and on the right you should have your source code for your view controller. Since if you whatever view controller you have selected, usually the counterpart will be on the right. So notice I've got the implementation of our class for our single view controller, right? Which already instances of this controller is created in the storyboard when the app is loaded. It's loaded from the storyboard in the app. So my job. So now I'm going to show you the tricks of how to actually build the connection. So the best way to do this is if you're in assistant editor mode like this. So let's start with a really simple example. What I want to do is I want to make sure that when the user taps on the pick button, that it triggers a method in the controller. So what I'm going to do is something kind of fancy. I'm going to go ahead and control drag from the pick button right into my code. So watch this. So with the control button down, I'm going to control drag from the pick button into here, and I'll get a little pop-up button. And the connection I want to make is, I didn't wrong. If you don't see action, that means you did something wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And probably because I didn't quite pick the button. Sometimes it's easier actually to do so in the hierarchical view of what's in the storyboard. So I'm actually going to do it from there. I'm going to control drag from the version of my pick button right into here. And now, there it is. I get an action option. So I want to change this to an action, and I'm going to give it the name. I'm going to call this pick all, and hit return. And you can see what this does is it adds a method to my class called pick all, and it has one argument called the sender. And you can see that there's a tag, a little tag that goes with this @IB action. So this is to let interface builder know that this is a special method, a special function that interface builder can see and make connections with. And you can see also there's a little button here that occurs in the gutter here that you notice if I hover my mouse over it, you can see the pick button is highlighted. So I'm going to do just something really simple in the body of this method. I'm just going to put a log message, and in my log message, I'm going to say pick all, and that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to use this to sort of verify that this pick all button is actually working. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and I'm going to go ahead and rebuild my app. And as we run our app here, you'll see that now as I connect the pick button, you can see down here in the console, every time I hit the pick button, that I can see that it's being logged. So now I'm pretty sure I've got that action correctly connected. All right, that's great. So we'll also want an action for each of our 6 buttons. So I'm going to do it from over here. So what I'm going to drag, control drag from my first button over, and I'm going to change this to an action. And notice the argument type. It could be any object, but I know in this case it's going to be a button. So I'm actually going to change that to a UI button, and I'm just going to call this pick number. And so now I've got an action pick button. And now right now, if you see, I'm just wired to the first button. I actually want all 6 buttons to actually call that method. So what I'm going to do is, the easiest way to do this is I'm just going to drag from this little dot in the gutter to the other 5 buttons. So I'm going to go to the button 2, then I'm going to drag to button 3, then I'm going to drag from button to button 4, and then I'm going to drag to button 5, and then I'm going to drag to button 6. So now the way I've got things set up, when the user taps any one of those 6 buttons, it's going to call the pick number button. Now I need a way to discriminate which button is actually selected. So what I'm going to do is that the easiest way to do this is any UI view has a special tag, an integer tag that I can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'll select my first button, and over in my attributes selector, I'm going to go down. You can see under view, you can see there's a tag field. I'm going to set the first button. I'm going to set its tag to 1. I'm going to go to the second button and set its tag to 2. And I'm going to go to the third button and set its tag to 3. Fourth button, set its tag to 4. The fifth button, I'm going to set its tag to 5, and the 6th button, I'm going to set its tag to 6. So now I'll be able to distinguish each of those buttons. So let's try this out. Let's log this. So I'm actually going to get the tag and code here. So I'm going to get the sender dot tag, and then I'm going to go ahead and log this. So I'm going to say pick number tag equals, and I'm just going to output the tag right there so I can see what it is. All right, close parenthesis. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and rebuild my app. All right, so pick button still working. Now notice when, so when I click on each of the buttons, 2, 3, I can see over here in the console that all those connections are made. So great. So whenever the user taps on any of the 6 buttons, I know that it'll generate my pick number method, and I can distinguish which button it was actually tapped by its tag. Okay, so that's great. So now let's go back into Interface Builder. Now the next thing I want to know is when the segmented control changes. So what I'm going to do is from the segmented control, I'm going to control drag from that over. So I'm going to control drag, and I'm going to create an action for that, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to change its type to segmented control, and I'm going to change its name to max value selected. And I should have an action there as well. And so I want to know whether it was the 49 or the 56, which the segmented control has a segmented index that I can look at. So I'm going to say let index equal sender dot selected segment index. Then I'm going to go ahead and log that fact. I'm going to go ahead and log, and I'm going to say max value selected, and I'm going to say index is equal to, and I'm going to index, and all right, there we go. I got it in there. Oh, forgot the closing quote. There we go. All right, fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild here. Run. So now when the user selects on the segmented control, notice it's only when the value changes. So when I click on 49 twice, nothing happened. But when I change to 56, I get an index of 1. I go to 49, I hit an index of 0. So that way I can determine which index the user actually selected. All right, fabulous. So now what I have is I've got an action, all the actions that I need. So I just need to know when the user clicks on any of the 6 number buttons, the pick button, or value changes or the segmented control. But I'm also going to need to, my controller also wants to be able to talk to and change the selected segmented index, and we also want the controller to be able to access our 6 buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another type of connection called a, well, here, let's go ahead and create one. For the first thing I'm going to do is actually from the stack view. I'm going to create a connection to it's called an outlet. I'm going to create an outlet connect. Sorry, I couldn't think of it for a second. I'm going to create a connection called an outlet to my stack view. So it's easiest to do this in the hierarchical view of the storyboard. So I'm going to control drag from that into here, and I'm going to call this and I'm going to leave it as an outlet. So I'm going to change this to my button stack view. So great. So there I've got an outlet to my stack view, and I'm also going to need access to my segmented control. So I'm going to control drag from my segmented control, and I can do an outlet, and I'll call this the max value segmented control. Great. So now I've got those outlets as well. So the idea is when my app starts, all these UI elements in the storyboard are going to get deserialized, and then all these connections are going to get made. So I got 2 kinds of connections. I got actions, which allow the view elements to notify the controller, and I've got 2 outlets that allow the controller to actually talk to the elements in the view. So now essentially what we've done is we've built a bridge between the controller and the view. Right, so we're going to stop now in this particular video. In the next video, we're going to go create our model object and create an instance of that, and then after that, hopefully after that we'll be able to finish the app. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now.